Call to order the meeting of the Police Commission of Simsbury on June 8th. I note that we have 4 commissioners in attendance, so we have a quorum. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I don't know if you guys have flags or not. Pledge allegiance to the flag,
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Okay. So correspondence. I received a request from a citizen about the whether or not we had vests, and I responded to that citizen that we don't, and not vests, cameras, and that we don't, and that we have requested it for the past at least 3 years, but it hasn't gotten past the Finance Commission. So that was the answer to the question. I think you all saw that. The next thing I've gotten as far as correspondence is, again, another letter from a citizen with several questions about where we are with the use of force. And I would rather not get into that at this time. I believe, from my reading of it, that we pretty much have all of this in our use of force. But just to be sure, I think we should maybe have the chief take a look at it and get back to us with a report answering the questions that this individual has raised.
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Mike Long?
I attended the demonstrations that took place last week on Hot Meadow Street in Simsbury, downtown Simsbury. And I thought it was very well done. It was handled very well by our police department. Chief Bolter was, I think, outstanding in his leadership there. And I think, as we all know, we got compliments from any number of people about how it was handled. And we do appreciate that a lot, Chief. But I do think it is time for us to review, as you said, Mr. Chairman, the policies that I know we do have policies on the use of force, various different how you conduct yourself with various different weapons if they happen to be applied to play for any reason, et cetera, et cetera. But I think it's very important for us at this point to review those, make sure that they have all the latest information in them. I noticed they've been reviewed up to at least a couple of years, 2018, I think, for the use of force policy, and that's been reviewed almost annually before that. And I think it's time that we update that and take into account the things that were in the letter from that you referenced, Mr. Chairman, from Ms. Boyson from Simsbury. Some excellent points of things that we should look at and consider. And I think we could maybe even devote a whole meeting to reviewing those after Chief Walters had a chance and his folks to go through it, update it all as they see fit, and then have us discuss it. Chief, how long do you think it might take to do that? 60 days, fine?
Yeah. Good evening. I would say we could probably do that in less time. If you said 60 days, I think we could do that in less time. So just if you don't mind, I could comment really briefly on this. It gets reviewed every single year. The last time it was updated was that 2018, but reviewed at least on an annual basis. And I agree with you, Commissioner, wholeheartedly that it's time to take a look at this, because over the last 2 years, we have been in development of a proposal draft to change a lot of the format of it, not necessarily content, but to then look at the most contemporaneous issues that are out there and see if there's a way to incorporate those, if there's a need to incorporate those. So I would say maybe 30 to 45 days would be adequate.
Okay. I think, Mr. Chairman, we can have the department survey members say 30 days from now as to what their presence is. The summer sometimes gets difficult because people go away. This summer, I'm not sure anybody's going away, or we'll go out of our minds or whatever, but it's going to be less difficult, I think, to get people together this year here in Simsbury. But we can try to do that, and hopefully within the 45 days that we think you can be ready. But let's check after 30 days, see where we are, and aim for a report within 40 days, 45 days, even though that's in the middle of the month of July. Let's see how that works with people. But let's say at the outside, we want to have it before the end of the first week of August, which would be 60 days or so. But we'll have it done by then. So I like to put that in the form of a formal motion and get a second for it, that the chief and the department conduct a full review of the force of use policies and other policies related to that, and then to report back to you, Mr. Chairman, as to when they think they'll be ready, and then for us to schedule a special meeting to talk about that subject, and that subject only, sometime before the end of the first week of August.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you.
Moved and second to take a review of this and ask the chief and his staff to take a look at this, get us back to prior to the 1st of August. All in favor?
Aye. The discussion from any other members? Does the Commissioner Fogarty have anything to say? Perry?
Well, I agree with what you just said, Mike, and I agree with the second. I think we're good. I think that's a good plan to have a little review probably at the July meeting and then have it wrapped up by August.
Great. Okay.
Thank you. We now have the approval of the minutes of the March 9th meeting. Are there any additions or corrections, deletions to what was submitted? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes for the March 9th meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes from the March 9th meeting.
Yes.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Okay, the next one is the April 22nd meeting. Are there any additions, corrections, deletions to the minutes submitted for the meeting of April 22nd? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve those as submitted.
Motion to approve the minutes from the April meeting as submitted.
Is there a second?
I second that motion.
Okay. Moved and seconded by Fogarty and Caulfield. Okay. The next thing on the agenda is the public audience.
Chairman Cosgrove?
Yes.
We skipped the correspondence submitted on the back of our agenda. The letters from the town members. There's a letter from a resident, letters from the Daisy Troop.
Oh,
We normally read those.
oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
We also have to
Yes.
vote on the motion that's on the floor.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
We still have to vote on the motion that's on the floor.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Yes. Perry, do you want to do these, the correspondence?
I can certainly do that.
Thank you.
A receipt from a resident to the Simsbury Police Department. The resident is very thankful for the services that SPD provides. It was a privilege to meet such good, genuine people, and I'm thankful for their service in the community. Received from a resident for Sergeant Tebow, Officer Cruz, Officer Rudowitz. The resident's husband had an accident while biking. Sergeant Tebow and Officer Cruz were very patient and helpful. They coordinated to have Officer Rudowitz drive the resident and bicycles back to the house. Received from the Daisy Troop to Officer Morano. Thank you for the tour of SPD. We are so grateful for all that you and the other Simsbury police officers do for our community. Received from a resident to SPD. Thank you for keeping us safe. Times are scary and uncertain, but we know you are still there for us. Thank you for continuing to protect and serve. Received from multiple students to Officer Cushman. Thank you for keeping us safe. Received from a resident to Officer Cruz, Officer Lantier. The resident was very appreciative of all the efforts the officers made to try to revive his wife. He knows they made every attempt to try to save her. From a resident to SPD, just a thank you. From a resident to SPD, thank you for the vehicle parade for their son's birthday. Received from Simsbury soccer coach to SPD. He was appreciative for the vehicle parade for one of the players on his team. These are the things that make Simsbury such a great place to live. From a resident to SPD, the resident was very thankful for the parade that was put together for his son. Received from a resident to SPD, thank you for the birthday parade. While during this difficult time, it has been hard to be so far apart. A silver lining is that we have never felt closer to our community, and for that, we will be forever grateful. Resident son-in-law for Officers Robles, Claudio, Officer Morano, Sergeant Tebow, Dispatcher Michael. A son-in-law wanted to reach out and express his gratitude and appreciation to the officers and dispatcher after a medical issue with his mother-in-law. Received from a student for Officer Cushman. Thank you for keeping us safe. Please tell the officers that we say thank you. I hope you are safe too. Lastly, received from multiple residents to the SPD, we received many thank you letters regarding the birthday parades. These little acts mean a lot to many people. End of the correspondence.
Thank you. Thank you for correcting me, Jenna, keeping me on course.
You're welcome.
The next thing we have here is this public audience, and this was something that I'm not aware of. I haven't received any direction from the Board of Selectmen or the town manager or anybody that we're supposed to read these correspondence that come in. And rather than set a precedent, I just like to say that this was in regards to use of force, and that I think based on what we talked about earlier, that we can address that in a timely fashion by the people who can give the correct answers when the time comes. Old business, the radio system. Fred?
We can't hear you.
We can't hear Fred. Can't
No.
see.
Maybe give him a second to troubleshoot it. Maybe there's a. You're unmuted over here, Fred. Oh, now you're muted. What we can do is I can ask Lieutenant Sifo to call into my office and we can put him on speakerphone if we want to move on to the next thing. And
Yeah.
that way we'll be able to hear him.
When you're ready to go, let us know. Okay. There is no chairman's report, the chief's report. We've got general, consolidated, and preliminary.
Okay. So excuse me for looking over this way, but So obviously, as you all know, it's been a fairly busy week or so for us.
That's an understatement.
Yes. I think that the police department is definitely showing their genuine compassion and need to listen and to understand the community. So I'm very pleased with the way that all of our officers have been out in the public in the last week or so, and I think they are genuinely a very good, hardworking group that is going to help try to make things a little bit brighter for this community in whatever they do.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
It's the first time I use on my home on my Mac, so I had to log out, log back in, get the audio to work. So I have audio.
You're in the pink now.
Do you want to go back, Mr. Cosgrove, to the
Yes.
radios?
Yes.
So we are working with the vendor to get the final, I guess you could say the final paperwork completed to hopefully get started sometime in July. So I was told that once I completed and we move forward, there are issues as far as moving forward to start the system upgrade.
Good. And
So right now we're moving forward. You know, we're not, as far as I'm concerned, we're moving forward.
any end date?
I'm hoping by end of summer. That would be I know the chief's wishes, and that's my goal. But it's going to depend on when the vendor can officially start the project.
Okay.
They're telling it to be a quick turnover within once it starts within a couple of days. That's what I'm hoping.
Okay. Super. We can go back to the chief's report. Thank you, Fred.
As far as personnel go, we're doing well. Everybody is healthy. We're along with the rest of the state, we're starting to open up a little bit now, trying to get back to a little bit of normalcy. But luckily we have a healthy crew. As far as our personal protective equipment, we have a good supply that has been coming in through the state and through other means by way of donations and by way of requests from the state. So that has been working really well. Not much to report on the budget, as you are all aware. It went through, so we'll be looking to move forward with the budget changes. We will have some dates for you for next time for our next CALEA on-site. We have those. I just don't happen to have those with me now. And then it's not really an on-site. It's just like the last year where CALEA looks at our files remotely and then gets back to us on a report. And then it's the following year in 2021 where they will come here and they will look at not just the remainder of our files, but also our structure, our personnel they'll interview, and things of that nature.
Chief, if I may, I know I just spoke to Tracy today about that. It's at the end of August is our next one.
Yep. I just don't have the exact dates. Yep. Thank you. As far as filling some of the current vacancies, we have 2 certified officers right now who are still continuing in the background process, just basically in the preliminary background process right now. So we're moving forward with those. And the 2 dispatchers that were hired last month are many weeks into their training right now, and we're looking forward to them continuing their training and going out on their own solo. But we have quite a ways for that. And that's it for the general section. If you have any questions about the consolidated monthly report, we combined. We didn't combine, but we showed there's 2 reports in there for March of 2020 and April of 2020. And then new to this, I included a preliminary report. I'm trying to get some information to you sooner rather than later. So I'll be looking at providing you with the stats from the month before our meeting. So just from 8 days ago where these stats came through. They are preliminary because sometimes the reports haven't come through. And I'll give you a for instance, that we have the initial report of a burglary. So it may be reported down here as a burglary, but after 2 months of investigations, we figure out, in fact, it was not a burglary and somebody had either misplaced some items that they thought were lost from their house, or something was damaged by a neighbor's kid, something along those lines where it was not actually a burglary. But I figure just giving you those preliminary stats, and it's called the monthly statistics, it's May 1 through May 31st, 2020, may give you a more contemporaneous idea of the activity that's happening and that we're responding to. And as you can see, it's a much more comprehensive report.
Yes.
It shows, both front and back, all the different types of calls that we responded to, and then comparing it to the previous month.
Thank you.
Yep, but I think that would be beneficial, and we can keep sort of adjusting this for whatever your needs are.
Okay.
Before we move on,
Any question?
of the report, I'd like to just make a comment, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Particularly for the benefit of the new commissioners. I know they're aware of it, but just again, to refresh everyone's memory, when the commission several years ago decided to pursue the accreditation from CALIA for our department, it was a major decision, I think, that was made at that time, and it has tremendous benefits to the department and to the town that not everyone's aware of. It also takes resources to implement it, to make sure that we dot the I's and cross the T's. But I liken it to sometimes when folks ask about it, it's similar to having, in my mind, an audit by an independent accounting firm of the financial reports that you do internally, or corporations do internally. And it, I think, is a terrific benefit to the town of Simsbury that we have this. And it does review all policies. It does make sure that we're doing what we say we're doing, but make sure that the reports are done that are supposed to be done. It helps to ensure that the role of this commission in reviewing citizen complaints does exist, and if complaints raised to that level, that we are involved in them, and it's not just decided in a back room somewhere what's going to happen. It's a very, very valuable tool, and I forget how many departments in Connecticut have it, but it's not a lot. It's a small number of departments, actually, because it's hard to comply with and it's hard to do. But we do it, and I think Chief, you and your people do it very well, and it's something that we can all be proud of. So, Jenna and Terry, I just wanted to re-emphasize that to you. As you are into this more, you'll see and appreciate the value of that whole, our membership there, and the activity that we go through in order to remain accredited by that organization. Very important. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I guess the next item of business would be new business, and A would be the deputy chief's position. The chief has forwarded to me, and I forwarded to you his recommendations for an assistant chief, or deputy chief. And I don't know if you've had a chance to review it and you have any comments on it. Anyone?
This is Terry. I've reviewed it and I don't have any comments.
Okay.
I also reviewed it and thought it looked good.
Okay. Mike? I think if
I've been through it a couple of times. I think it's well done. It's pretty all-inclusive. Not an easy job to fill, but I think it's important and that we go forward with it. I did have a question, Chief, however, that boggled my mind in the salary range from the top, from the bottom to the top is like $6,000. It's like 1%. Something seems wrong there to me. I don't know. I'm used to seeing salary administration programs that have spreads of 30 to 40% from low to high. so there's room for people to progress in the range. This doesn't leave any room. Essentially, I probably wouldn't apply for it if I were out looking for this job, because it goes nowhere.
Yeah. So yeah, so you're absolutely right. Yeah, I'm sorry. You're absolutely right, and it's because of the compression that we have. So we took a look at obviously the chief of police salary. We took a look at the next rank down, the lieutenant's salary, and then we took a look at throughout the region. We took a look at the 9 or so communities that the personnel subcommittee look at, as well as other communities. I keep track of that and to see what it is. And there's usually about anywhere from a 9 or 10% difference up to a 15 or 16% difference between that chief of police and the deputy chief of police position. So we ended up going with the mean or the median there, and that's why it's so small. There's not a lot of room to grow in that position for salary, because if you start any lower, you're just a little bit above what the lieutenant is making. If you start any higher, you're going to be right where the chief is.
Does that mean that the chief is underpaid in some way?
That's not my call.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's not my call, Commissioner.
Thank you. But so you're saying that this has gone already to the personnel subcommittee for their evaluation?
It only went as far as just saying that there is one out there. I don't know if they looked at it or not yet. I do remember being at that meeting, and unfortunately I know they didn't have anything to physically look at, and I don't know if they looked at that salary range, but I know that we did an analysis of the region and provided that information for this. I don't know if that was provided to them or not, but both Tom Fitzgerald from the town manager's office and I collected the data.
Okay, so this proposal is something then that came really from you.
It did.
Okay.
Yes.
Well,
yep. I did create it.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think Mr. Chairman, that that's not going to work. That's my fear, and I don't want to have the town go through a big exercise and a whole process, and then have nobody look at this job because they fear it's a dead end position or something of that nature. So I urge that and then somebody look at this realistic manner on the subject for me.
I agree. I think the dog won't hunt, and you really have to. If it's the problem is that the chief's range is too low, then we have to address that. It's not unusual when you hire someone in between existing levels that forces changes in both of theirs. So I think we have to look at the full picture here before we go out and try to find somebody. It would be embarrassing if you go out and nobody applies. So if you could take another look at it, Chief.
Okay, so I can send you the data that I found on it, but I don't know what else you're looking for from me, except providing you with what the data is for the region, and then what my salary is, and then what the salary is for the lieutenants right now.
Well, I think what Mike was saying and what I believe is these are ranges, okay? And if someone is hired in midpoint in that range or even at the low point of that range, and he looks up and it's only a couple $1,000s that he can look forward to over the next 10 years of his career because the range is so low, then I couldn't hire anybody that would come in under those circumstances. So I think that you have to move the higher level up. And if it comes to he's making more than that, the range is more than you're making, then maybe the powers to be could take a look what you're making and move that up.
I think it would be helpful to see the raw data, Nick, that we gathered, and not, because I would like to look at it without regard to compression. I'd like to just look at it with regard to the market. And,
Sure.
And, you know, I think that's the main approach. But let's just take a look at what the data might tell us, okay?
Yep.
Thank
Absolutely.
Thank you, Chairman.
I think other than that, it sounds like the commission pretty much feels that we could go ahead with what you've put together, Chief. See if you could do something on that range, and then we can start to look for somebody.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, and I guess the next step would be to put together an RFQ for the personnel people to go out and look for somebody, and see what we can get. Any idea on when you'd like to have the applications in by, date wise? I mean, could we get this out in a couple of weeks?
Other than next Monday, yeah.
Could we get this RFQ out, or whatever you want to call it, in a couple of weeks, or?
So just announcing the vacancy announcement and what we're looking for. So I would assume in the next couple of weeks would be good. I mean, I have to work with HR as far as what avenues they're going to put that out with. I think the more difficult thing is, where are we going to be in 3-4 weeks from now, as far as being able to conduct interviews face to face and things like that. So that's obviously a much better process. I feel that the process that we had for the chief of police position allowed for a lot of input and feedback from many different stakeholders. So I like that process. So that just involves bringing a lot of people in, and I certainly don't want to delay it, but I'm hoping that we're all at a much more comfortable state where maybe in July we can look at going forward with that process. But as far as getting the advertisement out there, I would say that could probably happen in the next couple of weeks.
My feeling on the other stakeholders was appropriate, I think, for a chief. We wouldn't bring in a bunch of other stakeholders if we were promoting someone from sergeant to lieutenant. So I don't know if it would be necessary at this time. But we can discuss that further down the road. Anyone else?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Keith, does this need to go back to the personnel subcommittee, or now that we've taken the action to say, okay, let's go forward?
I believe it does, because if this board is recommending this job description, mine is taking a look at the salary range, I would say absolutely. Okay. That it should, and maybe that's the place where the personnel subcommittee looks at what they feel maybe the options could be to address that issue of the salary.
And I think the chairman would agree that if it's so appropriate that someone from the commission could go along with you or whatever the process is to help explain what our position is, just so they understand it. So keep us informed, if you would, please.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sector rules?
Yeah.
What's
that?
Okay, so the sector rules are what the governor put out with one of the departments on what are all those rules that apply to different sectors in our society, such as restaurants, barbershops, regular retail stores, the rules that they have to abide by in order to reopen.
The 40% of it changed this morning once again.
They did. Yeah. So, and I think we're going to see they're constantly changing. But for example, is part of the sector rules was that the uh, the housing, I'm sorry, the health districts are responsible for any of the compliance issues with restaurants, with barbershops, with salons. Then there's many other sectors, such as regular retail stores, or sporting events, things like that. And they had to assign somebody to be responsible for making sure that there's compliance. And that if there's a complaint that people either are not wearing masks, they're not cleaning certain items that are high volume touching items, if they're not cleaning those, or they're not providing sanitary facilities for the employees, that has to go to a designated person, persons, or groups within a municipality. So each municipality had to designate somebody to be able to look at, respond to, potentially enforce the sector rules. And the Department of Public Health said the health departments, individual health departments, will do the restaurants and the barbershops. All the others are going to have to be either designated to somebody from the municipality. So the town manager had provided 3 different sources for that here, designated 3 different sort of departments. One is the police department and the police officers. The second one is planning and zoning, and specifically to Mike Glidden, and then to Henry Miga, the building inspector. So that was her letter to DPH dated May 20th, just saying these are the designees. And we all have the ability to respond to these. The intention is to discuss with each other. I mean, the police have very little, working experience with sanitary conditions. So we're going to see what we have. We're going to see if we can get compliance. We're going to then involve the other designees to make sure that people are in compliance and everybody's safe.
So you're the first responders as far as complaints?
We are.
Okay.
That's just great.
I get your item C is vacation carryover.
Yep. So just wanted to update you. It's that time of the year again where if people do not use their vacation days, they have the ability to carry over up to 10 of those. There are 26 members of the police department that are carrying over some days, as little as a couple days up to the maximum of 10 days. Anything further beyond the 10 days, it has to go before the Board of Selectmen. And we have one officer in particular. As a school resource officer, we encourage the officers to take their time off when school is not in session. So throughout the year, it's very difficult for the school resource officers to take their time off. And there happened to be then some sick leave that was used this year as well. So they're off looking to carry over 16 days as opposed to 10 days. So my plan is to make that request to the town manager to bring before the Board of Selectmen that we have one member of the police department who's looking to carry over greater than the 10 days.
And they carry them over for how long?
So there's a maximum, any days that are carried over have to be used by December 31st of that same year. So they have 6 months to use those days.
Are a lot of these days generated for people who didn't on overtime, who didn't take the money and wanted to take days? Compensation?
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard to say whether that's the case or not. When you have X number of years on, you develop or you basically earn up to 24, 25 days a year, and depending on what schedule you're on, if you're on the patrol schedule or not, you get some more days. And then if you're not out sick, every quarter you earn a day. So it really depends on that. It's hard to say whether it's because they took those days instead of pay.
Is there any further business to come before the commission?
I have a question on that item, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind. You'll recall, especially a few years ago, probably 8 or 9 years ago, we had come up with a situation where there were a number of officers who had years of time in the bank, so to speak. And the practice was not at that time to accrue those extra days or the costs of those extra days. And the commission took a very harsh view of that at the time, and I think it got down to minimal use, which is, I think, commendable. But I don't know now, Chief, perhaps you do. Is the time that is in the bank, so to speak, accrued as a charge so that we don't then, for instance, the 16 days that don't get used in a particular fiscal year, but they do in the calendar year, perhaps. But does that flop over so that the next budget then could possibly be 16 days short of funding because it wasn't accrued?
So, no, I think I understood what you were saying. The volume was a little low and cut out a little bit, but I think I understood what you're saying is, so we don't necessarily budget to replace vacation days, because oftentimes if somebody takes a vacation day, we don't have to replace that position.
Right.
And the school resource officer is one of those positions that if they take a vacation day, we don't replace them. So it's not in that budget for that. And we don't budget for the liability. The police department doesn't budget anyways for the liability of all those vacation days that somebody has if they were to leave and then look to have those to be paid out for those days.
But we do get charged for those days when they take them, I believe. That's something to check into.
So we get, if they leave, yes.
Yeah.
If they leave, correct, yeah. And then oftentimes, those days that are carried over, they do create overtime, because if it's a patrol officer that takes that day off and we drop below the minimum, then we do need to hire an officer for that day. But in the past, we definitely have been charged if somebody has left and they have, say, 16 days on the book.
Yeah. Okay, well,
But regardless, by the end of the year, they're gone.
The carryover days are gone. But
there's a difference between the fiscal year. There's a difference between the fiscal year and the calendar year. So we need to keep that in mind. Mr. Chairman, you asked if there's anything further in the new business. I have a quick item I'd like to discuss, if I may.
Yes.
It has been traditional over the years that when a commission member leaves the commission, that the remaining commissioners and the chief take that person out for dinner. And so I'd like to propose at this time that we take Commissioner Fleming, former Commissioner Fleming, out to dinner to honor him for his service. I did approach him to see if that was something that would be acceptable to him, and he was sort of dumbfounded by it and kind of quiet about it, but yes, he would. He'd love to do that. Now, one of the problems is in this sector thing that we mentioned just a little earlier, like today, with outdoor dining, you can't have more than 5 people at a table. Well, if we have the 4 existing commissioners, the departed commissioner, and the police chief, that comes out to 6. And so that can't happen. So I've got one of the restaurants in town is looking at it, because on the 17th, of course, indoor dining then becomes on the table. And he wasn't sure whether that affects the outdoor rules or, it is a, never mind, I don't want to get into it. It's kind of a mess. But I'd like to know if I know it's been in some fund that takes care of this within your department. I'm not sure where, but I'd like to be sure that is possible, that it does exist to be funded, and also I'm waiting to hear back on how it can physically be done. If we're in favor of doing it. So, Chief, I was just wondering where you might stand on that. No,
Well, I'm definitely in favor of going out and celebrating his time and his commitment to the police department and the police commission. As far as the funding goes, I am not aware of anything that has been earmarked for that or in the past, but we can look at that. As far as what's coming up with the new sector rules, I don't know. I think that if we have to push it back a little bit, if that's what the comfort level is, even if things do open up, anytime I would love to join the commission for that.
Thank you. Are there any other items to bring before the commission meeting? Hearing none, I'll entertain Mike's motion.
I would like to move at this time that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Terry, second.
Adjourn the second that we adjourn at 7:50. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone, for doing this. We appreciate it.